my name is Dr. Scott Sherr. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Transcriptions, as well as Health Optimization Medicine and Practice. I'm also an internal medicine physician. I've been in practice for almost 20 years right now. And today I want to give you a couple fun facts to start off with. Number one fun fact, how many thoughts do you think you have every single day? Is it 10,000, 70,000? Is it a million? So it's about 70,000 thoughts per day that you have. 70,000 thoughts. Just imagine that. But that's how fast your brain is moving normally, okay? Doesn't mean it's the same thought over and over again, or it's different thoughts. It could be a kind of a mix of each, or depending on what's going on in the world, right? But in general, it doesn't mean it's 70,000 unique thoughts, but 70,000 thoughts. Now, when you're anxious, when you're depressed, when you can't sleep, your mind can go up to about 120,000 thoughts per day. So my line from this, all of you listening, my public service announcement of the day, please don't believe everything you think. Because if you did, well, that's a 70,000 things that you didn't have to think about that day or didn't have to believe, okay? The reason why we have all these thoughts and the regulation of them is a neurotransmitter in our brain called the GABA system. GABA aminobutyric acid. It's our brakes of our brain. When we don't have enough GABA around, we cannot stop our brains from all the sensory input that's happening all over the place all the time that's bringing in, okay? If the GABA system is deficient, you're not able to make enough of that inhibitory signal, that calming down signal, to calm down your brain. So yes, anxiety and depression are two sides of the same coin. You're overthinking typically, just in different ways. One about the future, one about the past oftentimes. Second fun fact, mitochondria. These are the parts of our cell that make energy. Fun fact here, not so fun fact really, is that 94% of US adults have some element of mitochondrial dysfunction. This is a big deal because mitochondrial dysfunction causes energy deficiencies, the inability for you to make energy in various ways. This could be in your brain, your heart, your liver, your musculoskeletal system, or it could be having a major issue on fertility. We know that fertility rates are going down dramatically. The most mitochondria per cell are actually in eggs and sperm. So you have this mitochondria that aren't working very well, and you have a thought generator that's kind of overactive. And so how do you put all this together? It's something that I like to call the sympathetic spiral of doom. Dun, dun, dun. It sounds scary, but what happens here is that when your brain is overactive, overstressed, oversympathetically dominant, and so sympathetic versus parasympathetic real quick for people, is that sympathetic is your fight or flight nervous system. It's the one that gets you up and going and running away from a predator that's trying to eat you kind of thing. But the problem is in modern life, that sympathetic nervous system is on all the time. It's part of our culture. It's the hustle culture. It's like, we'll sleep when we're dead kind of culture. When I was in medical school, we had shirts that were made that said, sleep is for quitters, and that kind of thing, right? I grew up in New York, and New York City is known for the city that never sleeps. And this is the hustle. This is the on all the time. But the other opposite, or the other side of the coin, is your parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest, digest, detoxify, recover nervous system. And most of us are not in that state enough. And we can't get to that place where we do all those things because we're too much in that sympathetic overdrive. And so if you have sympathetic overdrive, that's going to put a lot of stress on your mitochondria because you deplete things like neurotransmitters, you deplete hormones, you deplete other aspects of mitochondrial support. And then that mitochondria, that energy producing part of your cell, starts deteriorating. Then what happens, it starts sending out all these signals that like, oh no, I don't have enough energy. Like you need to give me more stress so I can make more energy. And so it becomes this sort of cycle and spiral where you have sympathetic overdrive leading to mitochondrial dysfunction. And then you have the mitochondria that are trying to compensate for that. And you have this sympathetic overdrive that goes kind of loops, and spirals and spirals and spirals. And it's very difficult to break this cycle. Very, very difficult. And the key to do this is that you have to understand it's happening. As a clinician, it's very obvious to me now, being in practice this long, knowing that I can't particularly work with somebody just in one level. I have to think about using a holistic approach that doesn't just work on that sympathetic overdrive, but also works on mitochondrial function at the same time. So that is the key to work on both at the same time. The way you do this, in the short term, you can use various compounds, various perspectives and tools and techniques to help people right now. But over the long term, you really do have to optimize their health, both from a psychosocial emotional aspect and understanding why they're sympathetically overdriven, along with mitochondrial support as well. So from a long-term perspective, I use a framework called Health Optimization Medicine and Practice That optimizes vitamins, minerals, nutrients, cofactors, all things that are involved in mitochondrial function. That's great. But, and this is the big but, if you're just working on that aspect and you're not working in that sympathetic overdrive, if you're sympathetic all the time, no matter how many supplements I give you, no matter how many tools and techniques I give you, if we can't drop down your nervous system, you are not going to heal. You're not going to have any real benefit most of the time from optimizing that mitochondrial function. So it's so key to also focus on that psychosocial emotional aspect of things, or why you're in sympathetic overdrive. There are a lot of different ways to do that, but working on the GABAergic neurotransmitter system is really, really important. So optimizing the GABA system and understanding how you can downregulate the nervous system, but also trying to get down deeper to understand why their system is so overloaded already. Is it because of stress in their relationship? Is it because of trauma in their past? Is it because they have something else that's been really bothering them? Or, it could be lots of different types of things, toxic exposures, et cetera. There's so many different things that can cause that stress response to go up. So the key really is to look at these in both categories, long-term, and that short-term, what can you do right now to help? Well, number one is you can build up mitochondrial function. And for this, I use methylene blue. Actually, methylene blue is a fantastic mitochondrial enhancer. It increases energy production, increases detoxification. So you have this immediate capacity to improve mitochondrial function. And you do this with very low doses, and you titrate the dose over a short period of time, or maybe a little bit longer depending on the person. And then you can see their mitochondria start building back up and starting to come back online. Their energy gets better, their capacity to detox gets better, and they feel better. While you're doing that, you're also looking at downregulating that sympathetic nervous system. And the easiest and the fastest way to do this is to actually support that GABA system. You can do that in a number of different ways. The ways that I like to do this are to help with the conversion of a neurotransmitter called glutamate into GABA, which is what happens in the brain. So glutamate is the precursor, but it's also an excitatory neurotransmitter. And that gets converted into GABA in the brain. And you need vitamin B6 and magnesium to do that. So I'll supplement with B6 and magnesium almost immediately in people that have this sympathetic overdrive. And then I'll also look at ways we can replete that GABA very, very quickly. The challenge is that GABA as a supplement is too big because it can't get across into the brain. The blood-brain barrier keeps things out that shouldn't get in there, and GABA is too big of a molecule. So if you're taking GABA and it's working for you, it could be because you have a leaky brain, which means that you also likely have a leaky gut, meaning that these barriers are not doing what they're supposed to do. So great examples are if you have an acute inflammatory response, you're going to have a leaky gut almost immediately, and also you're going to have a leaky brain. And then if you have a process, typically the body does this and gets better, but if there's other things that are going on, it can make it more difficult for you to actually heal these kinds of things. So you have instead to have to look at the GABA system in a more holistic way. So what we do is look at the receptor and modulate it in various ways that support it so that you can enhance the amount of GABA that binds, but not deplete GABA in the process, along with giving some of those magnesium B6 to help with the conversion, and also something called glutamine, which is an amino acid that helps convert up into the brain with glutamate, and then glutamate into GABA, as I mentioned. So the key there is to support the system. And so immediately when I work with people, I'm downregulating their sympathetic overdrive using the GABA system, and I'm immediately working on their mitochondria by using methylene blue at the same time. These are not the only things that I do, but these are the easiest ways to get people feeling better very quickly. To sum up, the key all here that I'm trying to describe to you is that this sympathetic spiral of doom is very, very common. Sympathetic overdrive, fight or flight overdrive, depleting neurotransmitters, hormones, mitochondrial dysfunction, and it can happen either way. It could be chicken or egg. It could be the mitochondria that dysfunction first causing sympathetic overdrive, or it could be the sympathetic nervous system that's causing mitochondrial dysfunction. But either way, you have to break the cycle on both ways there, both on the sympathetic overdrive and on the mitochondrial dysfunction. So the quickest way to do that is to support the GABA system and support the mitochondria. I do that with GABA modulators, things that enhance the amount of GABA to bind or support the GABA system without causing more depletion. Things like kava, hanokiol, even CBD, CBG, CBN. And then we have nicotinamide GABA, vitamin B3 attached to a GABA that gets through, and something called agarine. Those two are the ones that actually bind to where GABA binds on the receptor. And so that combination is something called an obligate pair, where we have something that binds on the receptor where GABA would bind in a separate site called an allosteric site. In essence, it's a very fast way to downregulate somebody's nervous system. And when you do this, when you're able to show your patients or yourself how it feels to be relaxed, then that's where you know to get back to. In meditation, we always say that there's no there. But in parasympathetic activation, in the rest digest nervous system, there is a there. And so when you can get there, you know how to get back there. So the key is to focus on both the parasympathetic upregulation, so getting that sympathetic overdrive down, and mitochondrial support at the same time. So in sum, we need to break the spiral of doom. And we can do this, but it's much more important to think about this in a larger context rather than just working on the sympathetic side or the mitochondrial side. It must be done at the same time. Thanks for listening.